Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to explain that in 1 second. Um, because I was not going to do, um, this was not originally going to be two parts, but not unfortunately, but unfortunately, it's going to have to be two parts for the simple fact that it's too many releases. I have 58 just for the first 2 weeks of October. And so I just didn't feel like being on here super long. On top of that, I think I am starting to get a little funny in terms of like how I'm feeling. My throat has not been the best in the past like couple of hours. But my child has not been feeling well. So I would not be surprised if I inevitably catch what she has been dealing with. Um, all right. So I don't want this to be forever, but yes, I am separating October. So last month I did September's new releases and I did it all in one shebang. But this month I am not going to be doing that. Well, I'm not going to be doing that this for the month of October, if I could get my words right. Um, I'm not going to be doing that for the month of October for the simple fact that I forgot that there are 5 Tuesdays in October. And so each Tuesday is a new release day. Granted, I think we're probably going to see a little bit less as we hit into that last week. And I think the third week there's probably um there's a little less that'll be on my radar. But because there were already 58 books to cover in the first 2 weeks of October, I just thought it would be wise of me to narrow it down and do it as a part one, part two. So tonight we're going to be doing part one, which will cover October 3rd and October 10th. And then next week I will cover the subsequent weeks in October. So we're going to be talking about 58 new releases. For those of you who are new here, I am going to be going over books that have sparked my interest for the month of October. I used to do these as sit down videos, but the editing behind them was a little too much. And I found that I wasn't covering as much information because of the fact that I felt like the editing was just going to be too much. So I felt like doing it this way, it'd be easier for me to go over the books as well as cover more books because there's no editing that I have to worry about. I do not just cover one genre or one age category. If you're new here, I cover across the board. I will not lie, I do skew a little bit heavier towards youth-based titles because that's just me. But I do have quite a few adult titles on this one. Um, Slideshow, as always, where I'll be showing you the cover, the genre, the age category will be included. I took notes on each title, so I'll give you a very, 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 very brief synopsis, unless it is a title that I am like hyped on. But for most of these, it'll just be a line here or there to kind of describe. So, is everyone good to go? You give me a thumbs up so we can go ahead and get this show on the road, this pony show. It's just not a good time for me to not be feeling the bestest, but nevertheless, here we are. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, 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 hey. 30 and 30. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the 30 and 30. There'll be one of those coming out each week up until the first week of October, I think. I think it's going to be 5 parts. Well, the vlog series will be 5 parts, doing 30 and 30, which now with me kind of feeling a little off, I'm kind of glad that I read, I think I'm 11 volumes in for 30 and 30. I'm glad that I read ahead because my reading actually might end up slowing down because I could be getting sick. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. Week of October 3rd, I went ahead and uploaded my slides before since it was such a problem last time. I came prepared this week. All right, the first 3 books that we're looking at. It is The First Cat in Space and the Soup. There Was a Party for Langston, and The List. So our first one is a middle grade graphic novel. This one is a follow-up to The First Cat in Space. I'm just a fan of Mac Barnett, so that's pretty much why I included this one, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure with a lot of middle grade graphic novels can sometimes, and I don't know whether this is going to be children's or middle grade or probably somewhere in between, sometimes it can be kind of hard to read whether like not hard to read, literally hard to read, but determining whether you can read them out of order or not. For the sake of this being the second book in the series, I'm going to say you might want to read the first one first. This one just has new characters, dangerous plans of sabotage, and it's supposed to be a mix of just humor and mystery and all types of different elements. The second one is one that I'm really, really interested in because it is by Jason Reynolds. This is his debut picture book. If you didn't know, Jason Reynolds has an extensive backlist. He's written quite a bit, and so this is his first step into picture book world, which is a hard world to step into, I think, more than what people realize. But I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it. This is a ode to Langston Hughes, who is just, I mean, a literary mastermind. So I'm interested in seeing how he is going to honor Langston Hughes. And the last one that I have on here is a book called The List, which follows a main character by the name of Ola. This is an adult literary fiction, but there were like some parts of it that felt almost thrillery when I read the synopsis of this one. This is about a journalist, very, very celebrated, young. She has a fiance by the name of Michael. They're considered couple goals. People really, really like them. And then all of a sudden, things go left when they both wake up and they get the same text message that says, "Have you seen the list?" And it's one of those things where like men are getting called out for inappropriate behavior and her fiance ends up on the list. So then the perception of this perfect couple is kind of going down the drains. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Couple of questions. With Mac Barnett, you have no telling. It's the first week in October, if I'm not mistaken. It should be the first week in October. Right? It's great to see spouses supporting each other's work. You know, I always support my husband. Yes, the list does sound very, very interesting, especially throwing in that element of, I guess, her not anticipating seeing her fiance's name on that list. All right, let's go on to the next slide. The first one I am personally excited for. It is the Wings of Fire guide. If you've read Wings of Fire, it is great for people who are fans of warriors, which would make sense because the author of Wings of Fire, 2T Sutherland, is actually part of the group of authors that is Aaron Hunter that wrote the Warrior series and all of the other pockets of series that that group of authors write. This is I guess this is for like the obsessed fans. This is not something that you necessarily have to have. It's a collection of stories. There's artwork, and it's a character guide essentially, or it's a guide to all of the dragons, the history, the mythology, and the folklore. And so this is definitely a good option for anybody who really, really loves the series and you're looking for a gift to give them for the holidays. That's one. But if you're not an obsessed fan, I probably would not recommend buying it if you're not super super into the Wings of Fire series. Um, the next one that I have is Shang Chi, and I didn't write down the full title. Of course, I didn't write down the entire title because why would I do such a thing? Why would I even remotely do such a thing? But this is a new adventure for Shang-Chi where he sets off to unlock the keys to immortality and save his father. So this is supposed to be an all new original graphic novel. This is the same creator behind Hungry Ghosts, which is this is my first time reading their work was with Hungry Ghosts, which tackles some very, very difficult topics like disordered eating. So I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do now that they've been contracted with Marvel to take on writing Shang-Chi. Thank you. I appreciate you. It's Shang-Chi and the Quest for Immortality. Why I didn't write down the full title, I have no idea. And the last one that we have here is definitely Aaron. This is right up my alley too, which is why it caught my attention. This is Collision of Power. This is a nonfiction look at several different things. It's it's a power struggle between politics, money, media, and tech, and it literally looks at how because Martin, the author, I forget his direct connections to the Washington Post, but he was, I don't know if he was up top with the Washington Post or what it was, but for some reason, I did not know that Bezos acquired the Washington Post. Like, I must have missed that somewhere in the news that Bezos acquired the Washington Post. And it's just kind of ironic that 2 years after him acquiring it, Trump is elected. And so I'm definitely interested in seeing how all of that is going to connect together. It's series worthy of reading. I promise you, it is more of a true crime kind of nonfiction girl. I understand. I understand. All right, let's go to the next one. We are looking at some interesting ones coming up. I will say there's a lot of fantasy romance coming out in October. Don't know why that is. This one is not fantasy romance, by the way. I just thought about the fact that I'd seen a lot of fantasy romance. So this first one is an adult fiction fairy tale retelling, which is called After the Forest. The next one we have is an adult fiction, which I'm curious about this one for a couple of different reasons. And the last one is a picture book. So this first one, After the Forest, is a fantasy debut, but it's looking at Hansel and Gretel like after they've visited the the witch who had like the gingerbread house. Um, and it's pretty chaotic. I think that Hansel, if I'm not mistaken, is has a gambling addiction, and Greta is dealing with a world that's pretty much like falling apart. But it looks at a childhood filled with magic, or repercussions of a childhood filled with magic, and then a young woman contending with the truth of happily ever after. So there's that one. I thought it was interesting because I like fairy tales that kind of, or fairy tale retellings that explore the after effects or post what we're familiar with in terms of the story ending. Um, the next one on here, A Haunting on the Hill. This is the first ever authorized return to the world of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. So that alone is making me extremely curious because of the fact that it is the first ever novel that has been authorized to use um, that same world. So I'm very curious to see what the author is going to do with that one. I've never read Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, ironically, but I would be willing to sit down and read it to read this one to see how this author um, decides to work with said material because it's got to be a pretty big deal to get authorization in order to work in the same world as a classic. And the last one on here is a picture book, um, Zora and the Storyteller. So it's about a young Black girl and her aunt. and they're celebrating the wonder and magic of their family's legacy through storytelling. I think this one does have a content warning for death in it from what I was getting out the synopsis, or at least illness. So I feel like this one is going to be pretty heavy, but I like that the main character's name is Zora, and it has to do with um, this idea of storytelling, specifically like oral storytelling. Because if you're familiar with Zora Neale Hurston, that seems to be a big like correlation that the author was attempting to do with this. All right, let me see. Any comments? Marvelous ebooks, do they hold up against the comics? It depends. I don't really do the audio versions of comic books, but if you're talking about Marvel Press, which they do novelizations of characters, it depends, to be honest with you. I recently finished Aranya and is Aranya in Spider-Man 2099, which part of it was okay, part of it I felt like was kind of cheesy. I only ended up giving it 3 stars. So novelizations for me can be hit or miss, but one of my favorite novelizations is through DC Icons, and it's the one that they did with Harley Quinn. So it varies, to be honest with you. And I think it also depends on what age category, because they do a lot of novelizations for kids as well. Both DC and Marvel do novelizations of their characters for kids. It does. Yeah. It's the year of romance fantasy, or fantasy romance, however you want to put it. It's big. It's been big between Book Talk and Booktube and Bookstagram. It's huge. It does. Oh, reading Fourth Wing. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't for me. It is definitely polarizing. I think you either like it or you don't, which is fine. Some people that I'm quite familiar with, they enjoyed it. Some people I'm familiar with did not enjoy it. I leaned on the side of not um really enjoying it, which is, like I said, that's okay. All right. Speaking of fantasy romance, there's two fantasy romance titles on this one. I actually just um downloaded my copy, my e-audio or what is it? Is it e-arc audio? I don't know. My arc copy, but it's an audiobook copy of the Hurricane Wars. Treasure Island, which I'm amped to read. And then Throne of the Fallen, which is going to be interesting. I think you would need to read. Well, I don't know. You probably don't, but I'm sure you would appreciate it more if you read her other series before diving into this one. All right, so the Hurricane Wars is looks to be like an enemies to lovers type of situation. Um, both of these main characters have magical abilities, and they're swept together in what is called the Hurricane Wars. Um, they're saying that it's a spellbinding debut fantasy. It's the first and was going to be a trilogy that's set in Southeast Asia, inspired by a world ravaged by storms. Now, this is blurbed as being perfect for fans of Fourth Wing, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and The Poppy War, which is if you ask me, that's a heck of a combination to put together in terms of comping a title. Like Fourth Wing, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and The Poppy War, like those are three very distinctive works, and I've read all three. And so I'm trying to wrap my mind around a world that could take pieces and bits from each one of those, because to me they're so strikingly different from each other. But that's neither here nor there. That's how they comped it. I find that to be a very strange comp, but I think that whoever comped this just picked some very popular fantasy books. And I feel like because it's fantasy romance, they know that Fourth Wing, A Court of Thorns and Roses are two very popular titles. And because it's set in Southeast Asia, which could be very much so viewed as problematic, they threw in the Poppy War. But that's just me. That's just me making that statement. Take it with a grain of salt if you wish. Um, the next one that I have is Treasure Island. This is by Jewel Parker Rhodes, who I am a fan of. I really enjoyed Jewel Parker Rhodes as an author. This is a reimagining of Treasure Island, but it's set in modern day Manhattan, and it follows three different children who are supposed to navigate the city's hidden history, um, while dodging a threatening skater crew. And they are hunting down this long lost buried treasure. So I'm interested to see what Drew Parker Rose is going to do with that. I've enjoyed a couple of the things that she's done, but I'm curious to see how that's going to work. And our last one is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Now, this is supposedly set in the same world as her Kingdom of the Wicked series. So I'm not sure if you have to read. There was no indication that but anytime something is set in the same world, out of caution and just further enjoyment because of Easter egg stuff, I like to make sure I've read everything in that world, but that's just a personal choice for me. I don't know, because keep in mind, Kingdom of the Wicked is a YA series, whereas this one is it's supposed to be a standalone, but we know how that works. Whereas something can start as a standalone, and then they're like, oh, this is selling well, let's add another book. But right now they're saying that this is a standalone romantic fantasy set in that same world that's supposed to be a little bit more on the steamy side, which, I mean, steam is... People thought that Fourth Wing was steamy. And, and so, to me, I think mileage is going to vary on that one. And it's supposed to be about a dark prince battling an impossible curse. Take what you want from that. I did put, I'm not going to lie, I did put the first book in the Kingdom of the Wicked on that. I do like to stay in the know with some of these things. I mean, I'm still trying to find a fantasy romance that works for me, and I haven't found it just yet. So yeah, go ahead, go on the Fourth Wing. Yes, you have to go in with low expectations. Yeah, and I think some people, it's like, it's bad. But people, it's the entertainment value there. Yeah, I'm gonna try to listen to that one pretty soon. I'm so excited. Cool. Right? Isn't that a strange mix? That's just like a weird, like, it's a violent historical fantasy. Like, there's so many things. Now y'all are making me want to, like, finish the book that I'm reading right now. I have like maybe 40 minutes left on the book that I'm reading. And now y'all are making me want to start this, because I don't know what the expectation is. Like, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Fourth Wing, and then also the Poppy War. Like, that's kind of, I don't know. The fairies out of Cutthroat School have to enter a competition to survive. There's just, now y'all are making me second guess what I put on my own list. Oh, goodness gracious. The cover of Hurricane Girls. It's you around or yet. Yeah, I may just take that L, and I may just go ahead and read it this week. Hello, love. So people are excited for it. Our holds on the first book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series is pretty high right now. So I would not be surprised if the holds on Throne of the Fallen does come out to be rather high. It's a lot of pining horniness. I don't I would like to start and report back. I may have to do that, y'all. I may just go ahead. It's a long audiobook, I think. Hold on. I literally just downloaded it. Let me scroll up. Yeah, it's a 16-hour audiobook. So it's pretty long. It's pretty out there. We'll see what happens. All right. Next one that we have, I'm excited because I do like Brandy Colbert, and that is The Blackwoods, which is a YA realistic fiction. That cover is gorgeous. Um, then we have Green by Alex Gino. I'm interested in this one because um, it's a return to the world that they've created, which I'll explain when I get to that. And I'm very, very interested in this last one, which is a middle grade graphic novel, because it involves dinosaurs. And anything that involves dinosaurs, I'm here for it. So this first one, The Blackwoods, Brandy Colbert, I just really enjoy her as a writer. This is about four generations of a Hollywood family. And it follows them through an unforgettable tale of ambition, fame, struggle, loss, and love in America. So I just that cover is to die for. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love, 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 love that cover. Green, I'm excited for because it takes place in the same world as Melissa and Rick. So remember that George was retitled as Melissa, um, because Alex went to Scholastic and they felt like it would be more appropriate for the book to be titled Melissa instead of George, because that technically is the character's dead name. And so now, if you weren't familiar when I said Melissa, that's what that book is. That book is now Melissa. Um, and then a book that takes place in another book that takes place in that world is Rick. And so um, Alex Gino is circling back around with this one, which is Green, which is about a non binary middle schooler who is trying to fight for a gender free casting of The Wizard of Oz. So I'm excited for that one. And then this last one, Lost Time, it is comped as Jurassic World meets How to Train Your Dragon. Literally, when I tell you anything that has Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, you literally have nothing else that you need to say to me. Like nothing. It's fine. Like as long as it says, and there's going to be another one on here that is Jurassic Park inspired. But the fact that this is Jurassic World meets How to Train Your Dragon, I was sold. It's a graphic novel about a girl who gets trapped 65 million years from her current time, so 65 million years in the past. And so she has to learn how to survive in a world of dinosaurs. That's me. That could have been me living my best life. I used to have dreams about befriending dinosaurs. Although I think mine were a little sadistic because I remember having a dream, and for some reason I was friends with both a T-Rex and a Velociraptor, and I used to set people up because me and the T-Rex and the Velociraptor were friends. I used to set people up to get eaten by them so that they would have food. And they used to just stay in my closets. And I would invite people in, but then the dinosaurs would eat them. I'm not sure what trauma I haven't unpacked because I'm sure that's something. Um, I am definitely sure that there is something there that I have that I haven't dealt with yet that I should probably talk to a therapist about. But the obsession with dinosaurs is it's very, very and not great. Um, it's just oh wait, I should add that. Oh, more Crew Prince vibes. I probably will get. I've read Crew Prince this year. I actually enjoyed the Crew Prince when I read this year, so I'm sure I will get. I'll just report back to y'all. Okay, it's over 600 pages. Oh my god. Oh, I will report back. I promise. I will report back. Just put Blackwoods on hold. I'm excited for the Blackwoods. Honestly, yes, yes. Alex Gino. Yes, being the only person that. Oh, so let me hold them up because I kind of said, wow. I think we stop at 30 holds. To the first meeting. Yes, yes, yes. It could have been me. Okay. That could have been me living my best life. It does. It explains a lot, a whole lot, a whole lot. I, you know, I just, it wasn't anybody like I can't remember who I was setting up, to be honest with you. I just vividly remember like because in my room I literally had two closets, and like the T-Rex would be in one, the Velociraptor would be in the other. And like people would come in, but then like they didn't know that the dinosaurs were there, and they wouldn't like eat them in front of me. Like they would go into the closet, and then things would ensue. So there's that. Oh, which be exactly right. Being the only black survivor, I would be. That would be me. Okay. Speaking of, see, another dinosaur book. All right. So in this one, we have Knock Knock Open Wide, which is an adult horror. Then we have a Trapped, which is the second book in the Deadland series, which is a middle grade fantasy. And then we have another picture book. So Um, Knock Knock Open Wide. I'm not a huge horror reader, but this one sounded interesting because it weaves horror and Celtic myth together. So when I read that description, I was like, I love myth and folklore, retellings. I just really, really enjoy that stuff. So the fact that this one is a mix between horror and Celtic myth, um, and deals specifically with a family, an Irish family, I was like, okay, this actually might be like something that I would enjoy. Um, the next one, Trapped, I can't really say much about it because it's the second in the series. This is second in the Deadland series, but I've been trying to push the Deadland series like as much as I can because I know like people keep looking for things to read outside of Wings of Fire and the Warrior series by Aaron Hunter. And this is blurred, which I think is an accurate blur. I really do think this is an accurate blur because I read the first book, or it's an accurate comp. Um, it's comped as Wings of Fire meets Jurassic Park. That is a very, very, very accurate um, comp. When I read the first book, I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely see this as being Wings of Fire, the same type of like talking animals, because the dinosaurs all talk in the series and they're warring with each other. You have different groups of dinosaurs that are warring with each other. And there's a lot of political intrigue in it, which is kind of familiar themes that you'll see in Wings of Fire. It's familiar themes that you will see in Warriors. And so this is a really, really good comp for, especially if you're around younger readers or you yourself are a fan of Warriors and you've exhausted Warriors, you exhausted Wings of Fire. Deadlands is a series that I think is a good place to jump into. Now, I do think that the first book was a little rocky, but it is the first book in the series. I felt the same way about Wings of Fire. The Dragonette Prophecy is the first book, and it's a little shaky, but the series progressively gets better. So I'm hoping that this one is going to be even stronger. I think the first one I gave like 3.5 stars. So I'm looking forward to that one in particular. And this last one, The Light She Feels Inside, this is a picture book that follows the main character by the name of Maya. And she learns how to honor her glowing feelings, just like the Black women who have done the same thing throughout history. So this is a fictional book, but probably incorporating some nonfiction elements into it, highlighting and honoring Black women throughout history. So there's that. Oh, it's not coming up. All right, hold on, Renee. Let me see if I can find it really quick um for the Lost Time graphic novel. I can't say the author's name. I don't want to pronounce it, but it's Toss, I think is the first name, and here is the last name. It's Muknik. So if anybody was looking for the author on the thank you, Maka, um, on that graphic novel, there's the author. They do. Yeah. Yep. Very true. So it does feel like Jurassic Park Mafia because like the groups, like the clans that are, and it's interesting because it's like alliances, that are formed between certain groups of dinosaurs. And like, but there's been like this whole setup type of situation that I think is interesting. Do I not have that book with me? I don't have it. It's here somewhere in this house. Oh, it's right there. Hold on. Because I don't want to show y'all all my goods by standing up. Because I'm crazy like that. Yeah, so this is the first one. As you can see, beautiful covers that they do. But they have literally in the beginning of these books, they have the Prairie Alliance, there's neutral species, there's carnivores of the Deadlands, and then there's the Mountain Kingdom. So this is, I probably will reread this before I dive into that one because I listened to this on audio and I feel like this is one of those kind of like the Warriors where it's kind of better actually to read it physically than to listen to it on audio because there's so many different characters and pieces and parts with it. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right. Now this first one. I tried a Jason June book, and Jason June, listen, in their bag, because Jason June seems to be writing like all over the place. I've seen their name attached to YA. There's been a picture book that's been released, and there's been some leveled readers kind of, or early chapter books that Jason June has done. I get it. I tried reading one of their books maybe a couple of months ago. And it was, as a matter of fact, I have the audiobook, I think, sitting right here or somewhere. Riley Weaver Needs a Date to the Debutante Ball. And Jason reads it, and I think that I wasn't into it because Jason is a very, very animated audiobook narrator. Almost a little too animated for me. And so it threw me off. So I want to go back, but I may need to read that one physically. But because they're moving with such a force through youth literature right now, I did add this one, which is The Spells We Cast. It is a spell slinging, lasso swinging, and star-crossed love type of book. So they say. This next one is a children's nonfiction, which is one of the only children's nonfiction that I included in these 2 weeks. And because the child in me just thought like, hey, I would love to just flip through this. This is Beasts of the Ancient World. It's 23 stories that have beautiful, colorful illustrations that explore mythological beasts from ancient civilizations. So there's things like the Japanese Baku, the Sphinx, the Minotaur. So it's highlighting just different civilizations and the mythological beasts that are often attached to them, which, a lot of myth, a lot of lore. My Percy Jackson heart is perfectly fine with this. This next one, I thought of Brie Lockwood-Tisham as soon as I saw this one because I feel like this is right up her alley. Glory B is the first in a vivid and charming crime series that's set in Louisiana and is introducing an amateur sleuth by the name of Glory Broussard. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. So if you're into crime fiction, amateur sleuths, Glory B might be the book for you. But that cover is just, I really, really think that cover is chef's kiss. It is cute. Not somebody was breathing too hard. Where I read picture books, I can't. It'll get flagged. Unfortunately, it will get flagged. They've changed. I was just having a conversation with a colleague about this last week. They've changed the what's it called? They've changed the copyright laws back because during lockdown, we were able, let me think about how they did this. When we were on lockdown, we were able to read under certain parameters. And it varied by publisher. And then it was certain accreditation that you had to give. And now all of that they've pulled that back retroactively, or they've gone back and changed all that stuff. So I wish I could read y'all picture books live, because I mean, but it would get flagged and taken down because of copyright issues, unfortunately. Or it couldn't be like, I couldn't monetize it. Because people do story times via YouTube, but the legality behind it is kind of iffy now. I don't know if she'll like it or not. I mean, she may possibly be interested in it. I just thought of her whenever I saw that one because it took place in Louisiana and it's a crime fiction book. It is a copyright mess. It is. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I know that they've gone back and changed it now. So you don't have the same flexibility that you once had. All right. We are about halfway through. Jesus. You see what I'm saying? This is why I had to divide it. We're at 41 minutes, and this is why I divided it. All right. So we have Be That Way, which is a YA realistic fiction. We have Eli Over Easy, which is a middle grade realistic fiction. And then the last one is a YA graphic novel. What I am excited about is that there's an influx of graphic novels coming out that are specifically targeted for a YA audience, which I'm happy about. That's a good thing. So Be That Way. I actually have an art copy of Be That Way, and I'm excited for that one because this is a 17-year-old that's documenting their life in the mid 90s. Literally, that's the thing that sold me, because I don't think I can really come to grips with the fact that the mid 90s is now technically historical fiction. I just can't, part of me just can't reckon with that. And so I always get interested in seeing books like this because I'm like, man, the mid 90s, like, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, because I was a child during the mid 90s, but it is considered historical fiction. But I'm excited to see. And if I don't know if it's written, I haven't even flipped through the art copy that I got, but I wonder if it's written journal style, especially because the main character is an artist. I wonder how much they're going to incorporate um, into that. So, yeah. Um, the next one, Eli Over Easy. This is the same author who came out with Small Town Pride, which dropped last year. I've been meaning to read it. I still haven't read it. But this is a middle grade graphic novel about grief, love, and loss. And this one, I will tell you, has a content warning for death of a parent, which is not the only catalyst for how this character moves throughout the story, but it is a major catalyst. And so if that is going to be a thing for you in terms of content warnings, be mindful of that one, because when I read over that, when I was looking at the synopsis in its totality, I was like, ugh. I just know some people who just don't deal well with the death of a parent when reading books. So I thought I would point that one out. And the last one, Hockey Girl Drama Boy. Someone said it in yes, Ulysses. I don't know if we're jumping on the hockey train now with YA, but I do like Faith Erin Hicks as a comic book writer. So I'm nervous though. This is a romance. It's a young adult graphic novel that is a romance, but it's swapped because she's the hockey player, and she's asking for anger management, temper management from a guy that's in the drama club who appears to be more cool, calm, and collected um, than she is. So I thought that was interesting that she is a hockey player. He is not a hockey player. So yeah, let's see what happens there. Hockey girl, drama boy. Then I can tell. I can tell. Yeah, yeah. No, I hate that. Oh, that mid 90s is now historical fiction. A that midnight is right. It's just like it's wild to think that that is now considered historical fiction, which I uh, totally gonna read it. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see what Faith Erin Hicks is gonna do with that. All right, let's go to our next one. So we have a middle grade realistic fiction. This first one, this is a middle grade realistic fiction, is a sequel. Um, so I'll explain that one. Words Between Us, a picture book, and then Gone Wolf is a middle grade realistic fiction, and that one I feel like is going to be interesting. Also heartbreaking, and it's going to have a heck of a lot of content warnings attached to it. All right, so the first one, Ellis Johnson Might Be Famous. This is the sequel to um Sean Amos. The author is Sean Amos. He's the son of like Wally Famous Amos, like the famous Amos cookies. So that is his son. And the first book that he wrote, I read it last year, and it literally is about growing up as before, I mean, he became Famous Amos, before that whole entire thing was a thing. I really enjoyed it. The name of the first book, by the way, because I realized I just didn't say it, is Cookies and Milk. Very, very interesting story. And Sean Amos actually narrates the first book, and I really, really loved his narration behind Cookies and Milk. I enjoyed it. It was just good pace and good storytelling. Great insight to what it was like growing up as his father was on the brink of, trying to make this perfect cookie. This one is I don't know if it's a direct sequel or if we're following a different character in this one. But I'm sure that it's probably going to end up dealing with what it was like for him after his father reached that level of fame. And what it was like growing up as his son. But Cookies and Milk, start with Cookies and Milk. Don't read it out of order. I just feel like he's telling his life story chronologically, and it would make sense for him to do that. So read Milk and Cookies and Milk. I want to say Milk and Cookies, and it always throws me off that he named that book, or he titled the book Cookies and Milk, and I'm like, it's milk and freaking cookies. So I always say the title wrong. Um, this next one is the same author of Finding Papa. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same author of Finding Papa. And I read Finding Papa, which also it's a book that takes place during the time of the Vietnam War. And so this one, Words Between Us, um, is about a boy and his grandmother building a relationship when she comes to live with them from Vietnam. So there's a language barrier, and they learn how to engage with each other. I think they use stuff like flashcards. So they bond over flashcards, food, etc. If this is anything in terms of writing and art style as Finding Papa, I think I'm gonna enjoy it because I really enjoyed Finding Papa. This last one, this is Emma McBride's first step into middle grade, if I'm not mistaken. I believe this is, I think I'm like 99% sure this is Amber's first middle grade book. But it is a book that explores Black pain, trauma, and healing. But the twist of the story is that what would happen if we lived in a world where white supremacists seeded from the rest of the country. So they decide to create their own nation outside of the rest of the nation. Um, I know that that's not going to be an easy read, but I'm interested to see what Amber McBride is going to do with that, like working with that type of story. That sounds like it's wild. Um, yeah, milk and cookies. Right, which came first, milk or cookies? It's cookies and milk. It's cookies. I don't even drink milk, and I feel like it should be cookies and milk and not milk and cookies. No, is it milk and cookies or cookies and milk? No, it's milk and cookies in my head, not cookies and milk. It's Milk and Cookies. In my head, I think if I read it as Milk and Cookies, but the title of the book is Cookies and Milk. God, it's just so. Oh, yeah, Finding Papa. It's a good one. Not I Heard You at Racism. Yeah, the cover, because it is a clearly a black person on the cover with white hands covering their eyes. Um, so never realized. I listen. I'm really anticipated. I'm anticipating picking that one up. If you just eat something and find out. I don't drink milk. Yeah, it overheads his milk cookies. Oh yeah, he would be disowned if he put huh? If he didn't put cookies before milk? Kathleen, you're confusing me now. Don't confuse me anymore. I've been confused. All right. The Amos's would be pissed. Yeah. The cover is beautiful and scary at the same time. All right. This next one. So these are all YA books. YA is trying to come out with a bang of stuff in October because I feel like there's a few more, not even a few more, there's a lot more YA titles on this one. So we have Queen, which is a YA realistic fiction. We have And Don't Look Back, which is a YA thriller. And then we have now this one. Now, I know Ryan LaSala hit it off big with The Honeys, right? But y'all, when I read the synopsis of Beholder, instantly piqued my interest. Instantly. So let's start with Queen. So it is a YA debut about a queer Cambodian American teen's journey to find her voice and step into legacy. She is a slam poet, which is why this is commed for fans of Ibi Zoboi and Elizabeth Acevedo. I think that kids are going to get a different perspective with this main character being queer and Cambodian. But I'm interested because of the fact that it was comped for Ibi Zoboi and Elizabeth Acevedo, I enjoy both of their work. Ibi Zoboi it depends on what she's doing for me, but in terms of Elizabeth Acevedo, I enjoy all of her stuff, more so her stuff in verse, but enjoyable author. Don't Look Back is a YA thriller that focuses on a teen whose mother has passed, and she's trying to put together the pieces of her family's past and what her mom was hiding from the family or from her. So this is being comped as a mix or a great for fans who like Courtney Summers and Tiffany D. Jackson. Now, let's talk about Beholder. Okay. Y'all, I've never read Ryan LaSala, but let me tell you something. The summary behind Beholder is that no one survived. Like literally the first line in the summary is no one survived the party at the penthouse, right? No one survived the party at the penthouse except Ethan. So Ethan essentially goes to this party in this penthouse. He sneaks off to the bathroom, and it's a penthouse party that's supposed to be for like the elite, New York City's elite artist community. He sneaks off to the bathroom during the party, hears a loud slam followed by a scream. So he tries to come out the bathroom to see what's going on. And another boy that's the same age as him pushes him back into the bathroom and tells him, don't come out. And so when he comes out, he finds that everyone at the party has been killed and the bodies have been arranged in almost as an art piece. And he's the number one suspect. I said, so what in the world could have come into a party, killed everyone, and then rearrange the bodies as if it's an art like motif type of situation going on. I listen, I don't know about y'all, but I when I read the synopsis for this one, y'all, I said, I think this one is it. I think I'm going to enjoy this. I think that the idea of being in a house, someone slams, someone screams, and clearly now you have to think like, okay, this guy that pushes you back in and tells you don't come out and locks you into the bathroom, don't come back, don't come out. What happened to this guy? Like, is he amongst the people that like is dead, or did he just randomly disappear? And then you're the suspect because everybody's dead except you, and the bodies have all been like, oh no, like that sounds hella crazy, but so interesting. I was very, very excited when I read the synopsis for that one. Lactose Queen is for the teens. LOL. Less intolerant milk. Chewy doesn't tell me. Yeah, looks quite memorable. Yeah. No, 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 not feeling it. I think I'm gonna read it, Renee. I think I'm gonna. I've heard so many good things about the honeys. I think I want to read it. To be honest, yeah. Y'all read it. Let me know. Yeah, it just sounds. Yeah, it sounds super interesting. I mean, it sounds really, really creepy. I love. Sometimes there are some people in the back end who can write a synopsis that'll make you be like, "Oh, I have to have that book now. I must read that book now." And sometimes you have a synopsis where it's like, I guess I'll get to it when I get to it." But that one, when I read that synopsis, I was like, "Yo, what is this? What is this?" All right, let's keep it going. Week of October 10th. We should be 50% of the way through the list at this point. I think we have about maybe 25-ish more titles to get to, which is not bad. All right, let's go ahead and start here. I'm so happy to see that Jacqueline Woodson has another one coming out titled Remember Us, which is a middle grade realistic fiction. Brian Washington has one coming out that's an adult literary fiction. And then I had to add this for kicks and giggles. Cassandra Clare is writing, or has written, her first adult fantasy. I found out about this at Y'all Fest November of last year. She talked about it pretty extensively. She actually dropped the release date last year. Um, they actually sent out arcs for this one, which I'm very surprised because it's Cassandra Clare. There's really no need to send out arcs. But my boss got an arc of it, and we were both shocked that they were sending out arcs, considering that it's Cassandra Clare, which, you know, there's that. Now, I don't know if this is, going to be just adult fantasy or if it's going to fall more on the fantasy romance side. Now, let me just go through the first two books and we'll get to Cass Clare. So this one is a middle grade realistic fiction about a main character by the name of Sage. Her house burns down. Her Bushwick neighborhood gets referred to as a matchbox in a local newspaper. She's basically just trying to figure out her place living in that community. And she's feeling like she's straying further and further away from it. Then she meets this kid named Freddie, who's a new kid that seems to really understand her. And they kind of heal together. So, knowing Jacqueline Woodson is going to be poetic, beautiful, heartbreaking, all in one, because that's just Jacqueline Woodson. Family Meal. This one it was tagged as literary fiction, but it's interesting because it's about a main character named Cam who's living in LA. It's falling apart. Love of his life has died. But it said in the synopsis that his partner's ghost won't leave him alone. Like he makes spectral visits. So it says literary fiction, but I'm wondering, like, is it or is it not? So he goes back home. to his Cam, the main character, goes back home to his hometown of Houston, runs into his former best friend TJ. TJ's family runs a bakery, and TJ feels like Cam has changed a lot. Um, feels like he's, pretty much self-destructing, and doesn't know if it's really that or if it has to do with their estrangement with each other. So I know that people are fans of Brian Washington, so there's that. Now, this last one, Swordcatcher. This is Cassandra Clare's new book. It is about two outcasts who find themselves caught in a web of forbidden love, dangerous magic, and dark secrets that could change the world forever. That tagline to me feels more fantasy romance, and I can't see her writing because I feel like her young adult books are a mishmash of paranormal fantasy romance type of situation. So I can't see her not leaning into her romance writing this. But like I said before, I was very shocked that they were sending out arcs because it's Cassandra Clare. But then again, this is her first, step into the adult fantasy world, and so that could either go left or right. So there's that. Yes, Cass Clare has a book coming out. Not y'all collectively saying ew. I think that, someone asked at Y'all Fest if she would ever consider connecting the two worlds. And I don't think that she was ever opposed to it. I can't remember her exact answer, so don't quote me. But whatever the person asked about the connection between this and the Mortal Instruments, it wasn't a complete, no type of answer. I don't know. I could be misremembering that because there's a possibility, but yeah. Yep. So, all right. Never because I don't get the hype. I think she was a hype for her time. And Family Meal has a horrible cover. It does. It has a horrible cover. I know Brian Washington's books seem to go for like a very simplistic, but that's a little too simplistic. All right, so we have Project F, which is a middle grade sci-fi. This is a post-apocalyptic story set hundreds of years in the future, where modern conveniences are a thing of the past. So there's a boy who's enchanted by technology, and he's forced to choose between doing the right thing for his community and pursuing his dreams of adventure. So I'm guessing this is a world in which technology does not function the same way. Then we have Becoming the Boogeyman. So this is a sequel, which I had never heard of, Chasing the Boogeyman, but Becoming the Boogeyman is the sequel to it, which, I mean, it just sounds interesting. I would be willing to possibly check out the first book, but I came across this and I was like, oh, never mind. It's the second one. So there's that. And then we have Madonna. So this is a biography of Madonna, her rise to becoming this superstar and the influence that she's had as a female pop star icon um, of the century. I have my feelings about Madonna. I have a lot of feelings about Madonna and some of the cultural appropriation that Madonna engages in. So I'm interested in picking this up just to pick it up, because regardless of how I feel about some things that she's done, she is one of the biggest female pop icon figures of this century. So there's that. uh, I I have feelings. Read Britney's book. See, yeah, I mean, it is. You can't deny their influence, regardless. So Stars in Your Eyes. This is a adult romance by Case and Calendar. This is a grumpy sunshine, fake dating Hollywood actor type of situation. I really do feel like for these romance books, they just be listing the tropes because and that's usually how it gets people because some people do search for romance books based on tropes. So if you're, a person that gets your romances based on tropes, this is Grumpy Sunshine, fake dating, and it's a Hollywood based romance where they have a romance that's on and off screen. Um, then we have Curl Friends, which is a middle grade graphic novel, which I'm excited for. This is comped as New Kids Meets the Babysitters Club, which is an interesting comp. And I enjoy both of those. But it's about four inseparable Black girls who show the meaning of true friendship. I'm just excited that it's going to include four inseparable Black girls, and the title of it is Curl Friends, which is going to say a lot. It's going to say a whole lot. And then the next one on here is a Holly Jolly Ever After. So this is not a sequel to A Merry Little Meet Cute, but it is Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone pairing up again. I'm guessing, A Merry Little Meet Cute was a successful launch by the two of them co-writing together, and so they decided to come out with another one, A Holly Jolly Ever After. And this is an actress and a single former boy band member. Um, and they're reunited as co-stars on a steamy holiday film. So you like spice, a little, a little shebang in your books, that might be for you. Or depending upon whether you like to Marry Little Meet Cute and whether their writing styles work together. Back to beautiful book covers. Yeah, Kaysen has not come out with a book in a while, if I'm not mistaken. Kaysen hasn't released a book in a while, so this will be the first one um, they debuted in or they've written in what feels like a few years, or a couple of years at least. Since or done, even if it's not. Yeah. Never read it, but sounds interesting. Yeah. I've read Case and Calendar, but I've read Case and Calendar's younger stuff. They also have a wide range of um, age categories that they cover. They've done middle grade, YA, and adult. All right, next slide. We had Kiki Kicks, which is a picture book about it covers bullying and self-empowerment. Well, how should I put this? It tackles bullying and building that self-confidence or having self-empowerment, and it takes place at a martial arts studio. It's like, I don't know how I wanted to make that come out of my mouth, but it was not coming out of my mouth the way I wanted it to. We have Santa's Gotta Go. Now, I really honestly, I'm not ashamed to say this. I really honestly added Santa's Gotta Go on this slide specifically on in this grouping because I really like Derek Barnes. I've read quite a few of the things that Derek Barnes has written, and they never miss for me. And this one is about Santa. We look at Santa as being this, fun, jolly, holly person. But what happens when Santa becomes your roommate, right? Or your housemate? What would he be like then? And so, of course, the title of this one is Santa's Got to Go. Like, you got to go. Like, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. And I think that's what they were trying to emphasize by making this Santa's Gotta Go. The last one is Run and Hide. This is a YA. So I said it's a lot of YA graphic novels coming out, but I'm not mad about that. This is a nonfiction graphic novel though, and it follows the stories of Jewish children who are separated from their parents and they escape the horrors of the Holocaust. So there are a couple books on this list that deal with the Holocaust, or maybe it's just two. Maybe I'm just thinking of two. I think so. Maybe. But I know that there are two for a fact. Maybe there could be one more. I haven't read Santa's Husband. I haven't read that one. It sounds cute though. Oh, Kasich had to get a new agent after. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The Twitter drama that happened. Was it the Twitter drama with the third act breakup type of situation? I remember them engaging in that conversation, but I don't really get on Twitter anymore. So when stuff hits the fan on Twitter, in the past few years, I haven't really been engaged on Twitter like that. I miss it all. I really do. Mm, okay. The next one we have here, one of my most anticipated releases for the month of October, which is Wrath Becomes Her by Aiden Paul. I don't want to mess up Aiden's last name, so I'm not going to do that, but it's Polydorus. I believe that's how you say it. Wrath Becomes Her is blurbed as or comped as Frankenstein meets Inglorious Bastards. It is a Jewish historical horror novel about a father who uses what I'm hoping I'm saying this right. I think is ancient Jewish magic to turn her into, I forget what the correct name is, but she becomes a Nazi killing machine after the Nazis kill her. So this is kind of like his retribution for them killing her. I talked about this one last month because I was just really, really excited about it and kind of, because I've been really interested in reading books that touch on um, just Judaism in general, but a lot of the lore or uh, the practices that come with Judaism. I've just been really interested in seeing more of that stuff come out. Um, but yeah, it's a golem. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a golem. I couldn't remember what it was. Um, but yeah, just the premise behind this one as it being like it invoking that magic to turn her into a golem to then basically it's retribution for killing her in the first place. Um, it's a really, really cool premise, and I actually have it on my freaking phone. Um, I have it on my phone, and I really, really need to get to it because every time I talk about it, I get super excited about it, but I just haven't taken the opportunity to get to it. But yes, I think the title works perfectly with it, like Wrath Becomes Her. Because he's pissed, and rightfully so. This next one is Like a Charm. I didn't know where to place this one in terms of genre because I felt like it could be a couple of different things. Part of it feels like very realistic fiction, and then part of it feels almost fantastical in some ways. But it follows a main character um, who is neurodivergent and she can see magic. So no one else can see it, but she comes across this statue that comes to life and it takes her into this place that she didn't know existed outside of fairy tale. So I think that's really interesting. So it seems like part of it could be realistic fiction, but then the other part of it seems like it's very fantasy based, but then I don't know. Um this next one, of course, I have to read this one. It's MCU. It is about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's an adult nonfiction title. It's an unauthorized, meaning that Marvel has nothing to do with the production of this whatsoever. But it is a behind the scenes story of how popular the MCU has become, and like whether it's going to maintain that reign. Because it is a very what they quote as a transformative cultural phenomena of our time, which it is. Like, why did I say transformative? Transformative. Boy, I think I need to go to sleep. Why ain't nobody caught me out on that? Transformative. I think my cold medicine is kicking in because the way that I literally just said transformative instead of transformative is actually blowing my mind. Um, Either way, I'm very interested in picking that one up because of um it just yeah, I'm just very interested in seeing what they're going to dissect in terms of the rise of the MCU and whether it would maintain that position. Transform. I know, y'all. I literally looked at the word and I was like, I know that word. I know how to say it, but I was like, it looks like transformative. Not everyone heard it, and no one was gonna call me out about it. Y'all should have said, "Girl, it's transformative." You are. Oh, the cold medicine is making me feel like I'm drunk. It's just there we go. Okay. I'm gonna move on from that moment. All right. Coming up in the last few, I think we have about 10 more. The first one is Charming Young Man, which is a YA historical fiction. It's coming of age. It's about a French pianist um, who's navigating his life through high society as he's exploring his sexuality. The fact that this is starring a French pianist, and I didn't see what time period this was written in, but either way, I think I'm going to be interested in that one. The next one is a sequel. So this is the sequel to the first book in the Vanquishers series by Kaylin Bayern, and it's the spooky middle grade series. So I read the first one before we dive into that one. I just wanted to make a note that the sequel is coming out in October. And the last one that we have is Nesting Dolls, which follows a main character who's fascinated by her Gullah Geechee family, the history of her Gullah Geechee family, which I am very happy to see more Gullah Geechee books starting to come out. If you're not familiar with the Gullah Geechee community, I would highly, highly, highly recommend looking into that. I do not have enough time to explain that. And she wants to be beautiful like her older sister, a great listener like her mom, talented artist like her grandmother, but she just feels like she's constantly falling short of being like the rest of her family. But her grandmother has an art studio, and so she makes trips to the art studio, and she has a special set of nesting dolls that basically shows that whatever's on the outside doesn't tell the complete full story. Just interested in that one because of honestly, the thing that's speaking out to me most is that this is about a Gullah Geechee family. Yeah, I did. Yeah. 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 People do leave me call outs for falling asleep. It's fine. It's fine. I think I saw transformation at first when I looked over at my notes, and I was like, it looks like it should be transformation, but I like part of me also knows that is not transformation. And when I try to like clean it up, it was not working. It was not working. Yeah, if we were sprinting and I'm on this cold medicine, like I wouldn't make it, y'all. I'm holding on by a thread right now, but we're almost finished. Okay. So we have Songs of Irene, which is another one that I'm super excited for, just because the cover is beautiful. The title is Songs of Irene. If you know, then you know. But it is also the fact that this takes place in Jamaica in the 1970s during the civil unrest that occurred in Jamaica during the 1970s, and also features a budding romance between two women. Could not get better for me as a person. I think that if we're talking about three books that are like high on my list from all of these selections, we have Wrath Becomes Her, we have Beholder, and Songs of Irie. The fact that this book takes place in Jamaica during the 1970s civil unrest, when I tell y'all that that is epic for me as a human, I am excited to read that one. The cover is beautiful, but the title says so much. Um, the next one is by any other name. It's like what does that say? I am not having a very good talking night tonight, but it's fine because I'm finna get off of this. This is a YA historical fiction slash mystery that follows a main character that is a down on their luck actor, um, and an English lord who team up to solve a murder. So it's historical mystery. I'm almost wondering if this is going to have some like Sherlock Holmes types of vibes to it. It just gives that energy. Not sure if it will, but they said it's a Shakespearean era. Excuse me. It's a Shakespearean era book, so we'll see. Um, Kathleen, movies more realistic with romantic side plot and events. I don't know. I'm not sure if what it would I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm hoping that it's more of an exploration of the time period as well as much of an because the exploration of their romance is also going to be very um is going to be very important as well if you know the correlation between Jamaica culturally and homophobia. Um, Even the exploration of their romance is going to be ultra important to that time period. So I won't say that I'm nervous about that because there's a lot of ways that the author can tie in so many different components of it. Um, I just don't want it to be another case of the Davenports. That was my biggest issue with the Davenports is that it was such a unique historical time period, especially when we were looking at the difference between the classes in the Black community and people forgetting that there was an elite, wealthy class of Black people that did exist. I don't know why this is a thing. Like people just don't. I mean, it's not taught, but it it is a thing. Was a thing historically, and I think that that author specifically lost a lot of points with me for not engaging with the history more. It read more as a historical romance as opposed to historical fiction with romance, and which was a disappointment to me because of the way that it was sold to me. I just felt like it wasn't going to be a historical romance, but it was. It really was. And I should have known as soon as they said Bridgerton that I was going to be screwed over with that book. But people seem to really love it. If they were looking for my, but I hate that they comp the Bridgertons for that one. Like I really hate that. But it drew in a lot of readers. So and people are like, oh, Bridgertons except with Black people. No, no, actually, no, it's not. No, because the world in which the Bridgertons live is not the world that these Black people would have lived in. But sure, go off, I guess. I don't know. All right, I'm off. I'm off my pedestal. Last one is Too Scared to Sleep. This is a YA horror. Now, this concept, the premise is not something that really drew me in because I feel like we have a lot of, collection horror stories, but this is interesting. So, YA horror short story collection. Each short story has a video that comes with it. So when you're reading the book, there's a QR code. When you're reading the story, you use your phone, you capture the QR code and it leads you to a video that is linked to the story. Now, I ain't never seen no shit like that. They just coming up with all types of ways to market these books. When they sat at the table and said, what we finna do, we're gonna put QR codes of each one of these short stories. And we finna sell this shit. Because when I read the synopsis of it, and I was like, it said, when it said videos, I said, how are you going to include videos in a book? Like, this is a book. This is a book. And I kept reading, and they said QR codes. I said, so not we now are selling books with QR codes that lead back to videos. It just was like, what are we coming to now? You have to come up with so many theatrics now to sell a book. It's ridiculous. It is. It's like scary stories to tell in the dark for new generations. This is for the technology age. Like the kids that were literally born with cell phones in their hands. This is their version of scary stories to tell in the dark. Because scary stories to tell in the dark for me was literally just the book itself, the stories. Now it's like, no, we got to throw a QR code in there and have these kids have them have access to these scary videos. It's like that's wild to me. Interesting. Um, but I'm on the fence too because um this whole idea of videos is just kind of like I don't know how I don't know. It might scare me too much. Just for the library that's spending money. Yeah, yeah, I would definitely check it out from the library. We had CD-ROMs, you're right. This is the quote of the night. The booktube discourse expands. It's watching videos and books reading. Does does it count if I watch the video? Oh gosh. They said mixed media, but make it the ring horror level. Or VHS. Or I had a Walkman. I had a Walkman growing up where I would record music from the radio on a blank cassette tape. I just can't. I just cannot. Okay. Um let's go to the next one, which should be coming up on the last couple of slides. Um Okra Stew is another Gullah Geechee picture book. Like this is I'm enjoying the fact that we're getting more picture books that are talking about Gullah Geechee culture. Um it is a it is a father-son duo who are cooking and making okra stew, and it's a love letter to food, family, and the Gullah Geechee culture and tradition. It includes the author's recipe. I do not like okra stew at all. You cannot get me to eat okra stew. It's disgusting. It's a texture thing for me when it comes to okra, but I grew up in a household that was the okra stew was a staple over rice. Not for me. It's not for me. But I do think that that's going to be very, very cute. Once again, I'm loving, the way that some of these books are honoring Gullah Geechee culture. And if I'm not mistaken, this is written by the Gullah Gullah Island folks. Um, at least one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Now I have to. I think it is. I feel like it is, but I could be. Yes, it is. It is by one of the Gullah Gullah Island um, individuals. It's by is it by Denise? Natalie. Natalie. I don't know why I said Denise. Natalie. Because clearly I can't read. It's Natalie. Y'all don't. Natalie Days. How did I get Denise out of Natalie Days? Lord, 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 Lord. But yes, she was um in Gullah Gullah Island. She's written a number of picture books, but this is another one. Um, the next one that we have is Untraceable. Now, this one's confusing me because do I have that book? Um, there it is. Okay. So I am slightly I'm delusional at this point because this medicine is definitely like, girl, you need to go to sleep. Um, this author wrote Undercover Latina, right? Now, what's confusing about this is that I really do think that this one I hate when they do the show. Okay. This to me, I think when I originally got wind of this one, this is in older middle grade. This is not sold as a YA book. But what's fascinating is this next one, Untraceable, is being sold as a companion, but it's for a young adult audience. This is where I get confused with some books because they start aging them. And it's not there's anything wrong with it. Because there's a mystery series, I can't remember the name of it, where they start off as middle grade books and then they eventually become young adult books. But when I saw this, I was like, wait, huh? Like I got confused. But it's the companion to this one, Undercover Latina, and it is about um this organization called Factory, that is an organization of spies that are committed to protecting people of color. So if you're interested, I'm gonna I'm gonna go through this because the main character in this one is 14, and I'm not saying that a 14-year-old can't be middle grade because we always have these issues with wrecking for about 12 to 14. Those tween, I would even drop it as far as 11 to 14. Sometimes it's just hard to wreck for them in terms of content. So do some investigating on that one. Then we have The Fall of Wit Rivera. So Crystal Maldonado is a YA contemporary / realistic fiction author that I think doesn't get as much love as she should. I've read both of the books that she's published and enjoyed both of them immensely. And so this is the next one that she has coming out, which is about two characters, Wit and Zay, who are frenemies. They've been at odds. They used to date until Zay broke up with Wit. And then they're put in a situation where they're forced to organize formal together. And so, of course, I think this is kind of a second chance romance, enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, all those tropes. But usually with Crystal Maldonado, she tackles a lot of interesting topics in her books. Um, the last one that she wrote, which was called, because I don't want to get this wrong, No Filter and Other Lies. I really enjoyed that one because it dealt with social media and catfishing. And our main character she catfishes someone in order to get close. Not only she's building a relationship with someone on false pretenses, but she is using it as a way to generate money for a fundraiser, if I'm remembering this correctly. And so it addresses the issues with algorithms in social media and how it treats fat, black and brown people, and how the algorithm doesn't favor. And so she switches it to where I believe it's a thinner white girl that she's posing as, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering this correctly, just to be able to make things work for her in terms of this job and this fundraising that she's doing for this job. And I like that it addresses the issues with it, with the internet, with an algorithm, but also it goes a step further and addresses the fact that, like, you can't just catfish people because you're not satisfied with the internet. Like, there's consequences for catfishing. And so our main character deals with those consequences in a very realistic way in which she's held accountable. I'm not saying there's not a happy ending, but it's not a perfect ending. I'll put it that way. It's not that it's not a happy ending, but it's not a perfect ending, and it's very realistic to what she had done. So there's that. Which, if you've never read Crystal Maldonado, I highly, highly recommend her. She's written Fat Chance Charlie Vega, No Filter, Other Lies, and both of them I have enjoyed. So I'm excited to be able to dive into her third book. And I just removed it, of course. All right, and this is the last slide. We have, I thought I had 3 Holocaust books on this list. I couldn't remember. So The Blood Years, which is a YA historical fiction about a young girl's struggle to survive the Holocaust in Romania. Then we have the fall of the House of Tatterley, which is a middle grade paranormal, almost on the cusp of being a horror, but it is about a 12-year-old by the name of Theo, and he's able to see ghosts, which is a useful skill in a house of his dead relatives, but he has to deal with these ghosts constantly, like, pestering him, wanting him to help them out. And he tries or attempts an exorcism. It goes wrong. And then it brings an end to the Tatterley line. So he has to bring together the entire family, everybody who's living and dead, in a way to save the home that they've all lived in for generations. Excited for that one. I believe that part of that actually takes place in Charleston. So very interested in that. We have Look on the Bright Side, which is the sequel to Go with the Flow. So if you did not know, I really enjoyed Go with the Flow. I read it this year and thought it was great. So we meet with our four main characters again, and they're dealing with secret crushes, big feelings, just all the growing up things. And I'm just happy to see the four of them together again. And then we have a picture book, which is Rock Your Mocks. This is a tribute to Rock Your Mocks Day, which is observed on November 15th. And it is about the joy and power in wearing moccasins and the Native American pride that comes with that. So I'm loving that we're getting a lot more Native and Indigenous picture books than we've ever gotten in the past, because every time I see that statistical information about representation in books, Native American and Indigenous representation is always the lowest out of every racial group or ethnic group that they break out. I think the group that has had the most improvement over the years, if we're talking about representation in picture books, it's typically Black people. I think closely followed by Asian and Pacific Islander, and then Latin community, where I feel like the Latin and Asian and Pacific Islander communities are usually very, very close. But Native American and Indigenous representation is always the lowest any time that you look at the statistics behind representation, and not just written by, but written by and about. Because you do have people in the past who were writing Native American Indigenous books or writing books about Native American Indigenous communities, and they were not um, a part of that community whatsoever. So, yeah. Um, Lots of new releases to check out. That was 58 if you weren't counting. And that's just in the first 2 weeks. So we are probably looking at probably close to another 50 next week. I would not be surprised if we do get another 50 out of next week, because we will be looking at the 3 final weeks of October. So as you can see, to do the first 2 weeks of October is 1 hour and 38 minutes. That's a lot of time. But we will be doing the same time next week. Yes, that is true. Even in Asian too, they're trying to, before I end this, there's been some issues, especially with South Asian representation in picture books. And even with Pacific Islander, even though they say Asian Pacific Islander, it is a lot of East Asian representation in picture books. And so a lot of people are now trying to hold publishing accountable for actually including South Asian communities and Pacific Islanders in that breakout. But you will find that most Asian representation, and even in middle grade, I find that a lot of Asian representation comes from East Asia. And not a lot of it is getting better. But if we're talking about breakouts within what they group together as Asian Pacific Islander, East Asia is more highly represented than any other group within that bigger group, which is very, very unfortunate. I have seen some great picture books that have come out or are coming out this year that have South Asian representation in them, written by South Asian authors, which is good. But of course, publishing could always be doing more, because inevitably it's a continuing work in progress. But same time next week, we will do the 3rd weeks of the last 3 weeks. I need to get off of here because I'm not talking anymore. Not talking clearly anymore. We will do the final 3 weeks in October next week. So be on the lookout for that link. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you found some things to add to your TBR, and be prepared, because we'll be back again next week for you to add more stuff to your TBR. All right, y'all. Have a good night.